Video games have been a staple of my life since I was at the very young age of 4. As soon as my little hands could grip a controller, I never went back. I was astonished that I could actually interact with something on a screen that I'd first learned to associate exclusively with film. My little baby brain thought, oh my god, I'm controlling the character on screen. I am in the story. I'm interacting. And from that point, I was hooked. I have so many memories of gaming from throughout my life that I can't recall the moment I first started playing. Only that it started with a game called Star Fox 64 for the Nintendo 64. I have so many video games under my belt that a good portion of older titles have been lost in the deeper recesses of my mind, where I'd only remember them if something external were to trigger a memory. Be it a well-known series or a niche indie game. Indie means independent developer. If it piques my interest, I'm playing it. There is, however, one series I am certain to never forget. I first started playing Monster Hunter when I found Monster Hunter World and its Iceborne expansion free through my PlayStation Plus membership. I thought, well hey, this game got awards, didn't it? I saw so many people raving about this game, so I might as well give it a try. And boy, I did not go back after that. I would end up loving the game so much that I went out of my way to go onto the PlayStation website to purchase the game and its expansion despite having gotten it for free. Because if you get a game free through PlayStation Plus, you only have it so long as your membership is active. And I was not going to accept my new addiction as being anything but permanently a part of my game library. Monster Hunter is, at its most basic, exactly what the title suggests. You are hunting monsters. Superficially, the general gameplay loop has always been hunt monster, slay and carve or capture for materials, use those materials to forge and upgrade armor and weapons made from that monster, which each come with unique skills and stats that vary from monster to monster. Of course, if you haven't heard of Monster Hunter, you might assume that by saying monster, I'm talking about some demon spawns from the depths of hell coming to eat your soul or something. Well, no. Monster is really just a colloquial term used by the people living in the universe of Monster Hunter. Really, they're a plethora of megafauna that have their own habitats, diets, ecology, and so on. Most monsters are instinctual by nature, but some are sentient and sapient, often being described as beyond human intellect, and also very, very freaking powerful. These are called Elder Dragons. Each Monster Hunter game has had its own story, but focus has always been chiefly on the monsters and the aforementioned gameplay. There is plenty of lore around the series though, and it has sparked an entire subsect of the Monster Hunter community that dedicates a lot of time theorizing and understanding lore implications throughout the games. It is, by far, one of my favorite game franchises of all time. Never have I sunk sleepless nights into video games like I have this game before. Don't do that, by the way. Every hunt is exhilarating. Every weapon is fun to use, every skill serves a viable purpose, every piece of armor and weapon is unique, each monster moves and attacks with unique animations, and all have their own natural routines. There's just so much I love about this franchise that if I keep going, I'll end up overshadowing the point of this video in the first place. I want to focus on something very particular, something that I believe would be an interesting endeavor to unpack, and it begins here. Before getting into the meat of the topic at hand, I'd like to thank my friends Dante, Eclain, and Drew for joining me in the hunts you will see us do against several Gore Magala. A Gore Magala is a large demi-elder dragon featured in several entries of the Monster Hunter series. Also known as the Black Eclipse or the Stalking Shadow, it is officially labeled as a demi-elder, as it is the juvenile form of the elder dragon Shagaru Magala, which it will eventually evolve into. It is largely recognized for its cloak-like wings and black scales, and is known for its ability to infect other organisms with a maddening virus called Frenzy that leads to increased aggression and lack of self-preservation, among other debilitating effects. The monsters you saw in the previous cutscene, a Nursilla and a Yian Kut-Ku, were both infected by this virus, which caused them to be exceptionally enraged. Where there are monsters recognized as being infected with Frenzy, it is very likely a Gore Magala is nearby as well. Gore Magala are capable of using the Frenzy virus offensively. Many of its attacks utilize the infection, often as projectiles or even explosions. Gore Magala seem to be relatively passive-aggressive. Though not outright violent toward any passerby, they will attack if provoked or simply if someone gets too close. Being demi-elders, Gore Magala are some of the more dangerous monsters compared to the average monster, and given they are juveniles, they are often unpredictable and easily agitated. Now, finally, with that context, we can explore why I'm making this video in the first place, by beginning with a question. How does Gore Magala reflect the influence of German culture? This question is important, as many monsters in the Monster Hunter series have connections to many different things. Mizutsune, for example, is directly linked to Japanese folklore and mythos. Arkveld appears to be connected to Arthurian lore and the Knights of the Round Table. Some monsters are even inspired by objects like military machinery, such as Valstrax, an elder dragon based on a fighter jet. Gore Magala, on the surface, doesn't appear to be connected to German culture at all. One would be hard-pressed to connect Gore Magala to the many creatures or beasts in old Germanic tales. Thus, it seems strange to say that Gore Magala holds any connection to Germany or the ancient Germanic kingdoms. However, the place to start doesn't lie within Gore Magala itself, but the weapons hunters can make out of its body parts. Each weapon in Monster Hunter comes with a unique name, slightly changing as one upgrades said weapon. Naturally, Gore Magala weapons are no different, but these weapons titles aren't written in English, they're written in German. For example, the Great Sword is called the Schattenstoß, or Shadow Pride, the Charge Blade is called the Ellenskraft, or Misery Force, the Light Bowgun is called the Fallnisschleuder, or Rotten Slingshot, and the bow is called Entbehrung, or Deprivation. I went around the internet looking for reasons as to why Gore Magala's weapons were titled in German, and it seemed to boil down to, it just looks cool. I thought, well, that seems a bit dismissive. Like, why is it cool though? What is it about the German language that is, quote, cool? Especially in the context of Gore Magala. In fact, it is a form of German influence for the weapons to be titled in German to begin with. The fact that Gore Magala's weapons are titled in German can't simply be just because. Influence from other cultures doesn't simply exist for the sake of existing. There are always reasons, whether consciously or unconsciously considered. I would argue that the reason that Gore Magala's weapons are titled in German is based on the social standards that exist within Germany. In Germany, for example, a trip to the grocery store is staunchly different socially compared to the United States. In the US, where I live, we typically approach a cashier and receive things like, "How are you?" and "Have a good day," as part of a typical routine. In a German grocery store, efficiency is key, and pleasantries aren't typically a part of shopping and checking out. Cashiers don't usually exchange much conversation and focus more on getting your items checked out and setting you on your way, leading to a much faster shopping experience. Gee, I sure wish we did that here in the States, if I'm being completely honest. What's the point of me bringing this up? Well, the statistics of Gore Magala's weapons are actually quite efficient compared to other weapons. It could be a coincidence, but it is an interesting detail nonetheless when we're talking about Gore Magala's connection to German influence. They boast a 20% affinity being the chance in which each hit a player lands is a critical hit. The higher the percentage, the higher the chance a hit will be a critical hit. Gore Magala's weapons boast the highest affinity among any other weapon, at least in Monster Hunter Wilds. Additionally, they boast an overall higher sharpness gauge while maintaining a generally larger damage output than other weapons with higher sharpness. While not the strongest weapons by damage output alone, they are incredibly efficient given these details. Efficiency is the name of the game, it seems, both for Gore Magala and Germany. There is a pattern that one can see in the weapons' titles, words that largely associate with the themes of decay and death, which are central themes of German Gothic artistic expression, seen in works such as The Dead Lovers, also known as the Rotting Pear painting, which was illustrated in 1470 by an unknown German Gothic painter. Subjects of the painting focused on the reminder of death, memento mori, and decomposition. Gore Magala, from an aesthetical perspective, can be connected to German grotesque art. Grotesque, in this instance, refers more to signaling something as being otherworldly or fantastical. Sure, all monsters in Monster Hunter can be described as fantastical because it is a work of fiction. These monsters, of course, don't exist. But Gore Magala is otherworldly among its own fictional setting by internalizing German expressionism and romanticism into itself. Gore Magala, being able to use the frenzy virus as a weapon, is thus essentially an embodiment of madness and the cause of psychological trauma, which is a key theme that comes with German expressionism. The madman is an important figure in said German expressionism, but what is interesting is that Gore Magala would be the catalyst of creating madman, not the figure of madness itself. The frenzy virus, I would argue, is also influenced by German grotesque themes. It is the madness without form, so to speak, that seeps into the unfortunate and thus reels its ugly head by driving the natural world insane, beast and man alike. Circling back to the topic of the names of Gore Magala's weapons, terms like rotting and deprivation seem particularly important when discussing the grotesque realm of German artistic expression, as such themes exist therein, such as the case with Otto Dix's The Scat Player's painting, which referred to the themes of dehumanization specifically in regards to disabled war veterans post-World War I. Dehumanization is a form of deprivation, and the virus that Gore Magala inflicts upon its victims deprives them of their self-control, which could be argued to be a human aspect, effectively dehumanizing a person who has been infected into a wildly enraged individual, a madman. These examples are just a few of how Gore Magala is at least somewhat connected to German culture, as it does reflect many forms of artistic expression and symbolism that has been and are prevalent in Germany. With its maddening virus at its command and its shadowy form, Gore Magala is, at least partially, ingrained with the influence of German artistry.